Hello everyone, my name is Steven and welcome to Storytime. Today, we're going to be reading some malicious compliance stories, tales where following the rules can lead to some just desserts. And let me just say, if you're not already subscribed to Storytime, please consider doing so. But with that being said, let's sit back, relax, and listen to some captivating Reddit stories. I solemnly swear not to interfere with the investigation. Picture it, tech support 20XX. I had a job doing tech support for a small company that did software as a service for a niche. I had been hired at the company as Tier 1 support with the understanding that they wanted to create a Tier 2 position to do more advanced stuff, and that job was mine once I got the hang of things. Quick aside, get promises like that in writing when you get hired, kids. I had been at the place for about a year with no promotion. In that time, I had learned their systems and worked with the web development, database, and product development people so that I could start doing a lot of the tech support stuff that used to fall on their shoulders within our department. Eventually, after discussions with the head of product development and the head of my department, it was decided I'd start doing the more advanced stuff as my main job, and that I'd be the one in tech support to politely tell clients to pound sand if they were asking for something that was impossible or trying to finagle a freebie via tech support when they didn't get it in sales. This meant I took a hit in surveys because clients didn't like to hear no, even if it was put in flowery language. But my boss knew the score and told me it wasn't a problem. Cut to the call. A client calls in saying that a critical piece of client data has been deleted from their system. It just so happens that our software gave us the ability to see who did what in the software, so I did a quick check and discovered that the person who called me had been deleting records that day, something we advised them not to do, and ended up deleting a chunk of information that they needed. They then called and blamed it on the software. I gave them the usual spiel about a fee for restoring information. They went ballistic, saying that they shouldn't have to pay a fee when our software was at fault. I pointed out the record we had that showed they'd done it, and that we recommend against deleting records to avoid just this scenario, and they hung up in a tizzy. Then I got called into the meeting. The company owner liked to have a personal relationship with all his clients. He got to shoot the breeze with them and be the good guy, which meant clients had his personal cell phone number and they could call him and get him to override anything his employees said. The practical upshot was a lot of time was wasted catering to last-minute changes, freebies, or trying to do the impossible because he wanted to be a people pleaser. Well, I get called into a meeting with the owner, the product development people, the database people, and my boss. I get chewed out for ignoring a critical issue where the software is deleting records. I can't get in a word edgewise because he's reaming me for not caring about the customers and being rude. It's pretty clear he got one side of the story from the client calling him, and he's not interested in hearing my version. He then tells the product development and database people that they need to put everyone on this problem immediately, that this is a terrible bug that could cause big issues. He then looks at me and tells me that I'm not to interfere with the investigation in any way because he wants people who are good with the clients on this one. He cited my lower satisfaction numbers, and from my boss's silence, they seemed more than happy to throw me under the bus. I could have told them the only bug in the system was pebcac. Problem exists between keyboard and chair. But I figured if he was going to be a dick and my boss wasn't going to step in, then I was going to do exactly what he said. So people were pulled off of their work to find this bug. What resulted was a couple weeks of the owner breathing fire at people to track it down. This resulted in a bunch of money being wasted both in labor hours trying to track down a non-existent bug, and all the money wasted because they weren't working on updates to the software or things for new clients. Occasionally, someone would stop by my desk and ask if I had any insight. I think the poop-eating grin I had when they were discussing the bug was a tip-off I knew something. But I politely told them that I was following the owner's orders and not interfering since I wasn't good with clients. At the end of those couple of weeks, another meeting was called with the owner. The various teams said they were unable to find anything. At this point, I raised my hand and told them I might have something. The owner looked ticked, but I pulled out the log I'd found that clearly showed the user going in and deleting the information, which was something that wasn't there when they went to look because the user can turn off logging and delete records on their end, and the poop weasel I talked to on the phone had done just that when they realized they were at fault. They didn't delete the record I'd saved though. The owner got angry all over again and asked why I hadn't said anything. The real answer was I was over the job at that point and had a side gig that was very quickly going to become my main gig, which resulted in a lot of fun little moments of malicious compliance. But in this case, I simply smiled and said I was following his orders not to talk with the client or the people investigating this terrible bug. I think the takeaway from this is you probably should always listen to any employee no matter what. At least try and get both sides of a story before you start reaming somebody for something. And consider their concerns, considering it's a tech support thing and you're likely not involved in that side of it, so you don't know all the facts that they might have. But I'm glad OP got a little bit of fun out of it. Housemate terminated the lease without asking, so I moved out immediately with the fridge. This happened some years ago. I was reminded of it by reading stories on here. I'd just moved to Sydney and had been living in a share house for a few months that I found through a flat share website. We got on okay, would go out to parties together, etc. Most of the stuff in the house was theirs. I only brought my fridge, and they had just thrown theirs out, considering it replaced. I'm about to get the week's groceries and ask my housemate if she wants anything. No, she's good. I get lots of food to cook for the week and come home to find her standing awkwardly with her boyfriend. She had weird news. They had decided to move out together. How exciting! Okay, so I guess that means I take over the lease? Nope. They considered themselves the last in a long line of friends who'd leased the house, and being the last to go, thought it fitting to terminate the lease. They had notified the landlord prior to speaking to any of us. They figured I could stay with my sister. Jack was only in the country another month, and Sarah was hardly here anyway. Okay, so I didn't have a leg to stand on legally. I wasn't signed on the lease, so I had 3 weeks to vacate. House hunting is like a part-time job, and I already had a full-time job. No time to cook all that food, I guess. Would have been good to know before the shop. I got lucky and found a house just down the road on the same day. Nice people, good spot, and close enough that I could move my things in by hand immediately if I like. I slept in my new house that night, but I always like to think you haven't really moved in until your fridge is in. And don't worry, I had that sorted out too. The others in the house found new places quickly too, leaving the happy couple home alone. I came back to pick up a couple of loose ends 3 weeks later and got to see their fridge work around in all its slumly glory. An esky full of food floating in melted ice. The revenge was petty and small, proportionate to their actions. Well, that's certainly pretty rude to just out of the blue say, hey, you're all just not going to be able to live here anymore. Went out and bought all that food to cook and everything, and then nope, you're going to have to leave. I'm really glad OP managed to land perfectly right back on their feet almost instantly though, especially in combination with having a full-time job. Student can't walk to the van alone? Okay. I work in a special needs classroom with students from different districts in the area, so most of our students ride in their own vans instead of the bus. One of my students is super smart and well behaved. He just has some quirks and social issues that keep him from succeeding in a typical education setting. He is responsible, so for the past year we let him get ready and walk to the curb and get in the van by himself. I was never farther than 10 yards behind him, making sure he got in all right. His van driver is nice though, but she seems to get really anxious and snappy about getting on the road on time because she has a long drive out to the kid's house. Cut to last week. His mom called my supervisor raising heck because the van driver told her that I let her kid wander the parking lot unsupervised. I explained myself that this had never happened, but we do promote independence and let him get in by himself. His mom was not convinced and basically told us to stop doing that. Okay, not a problem. This student's van tends to pull up to the curb last out of about 10 other contracted transportation service vehicles. My malicious compliance, I let this student walk with me while we get all of his classmates onto their vans. That way, he still gets to feel awesome because he's being responsible by helping his friends and he doesn't leave my side. It now takes us about 10 to 15 minutes to get back to his van. Today, his van driver looked at me and said he probably could walk to the curb and get in the van himself. I gave her a little smile and told her, I'm not just gonna let him wander around the parking lot. See you tomorrow. Her lips tightened up and she turned red, annoyed that she has to wait from now on. OP sounds like a beautiful person, trying to make sure the student just has the best experience possible. That's a great malicious compliance story. My parents forced me to wear a dress, So I did. I'm a trans man and grew up in a very conservative family. As a kid, my parents often forced me to wear dresses and makeup in all sorts of occasions, despite me being extremely uncomfortable with it. The official reasoning was so the neighbors won't talk, but a large portion of it was also you need to look as attractive as possible for arranging marriage you have absolutely no interest in. At first, I used to protest it and try to get away with wearing something as toned down and unisex as possible, but eventually it became exhausting and distressing, so screw that. You want me to wear a dress? Fine, I'll wear a dress. The next time I was required to show up in a somewhat formal event, I sure did wear a dress. A black, puffy Victorian-esque dress, a red corset, dramatic gothic jewelry, heavy black makeup, a full-on show. Oh yeah, the neighbors did talk. Take life by the reins, OP. Show them how it's done. Show everybody to dress up in a very standout way. Don't let anybody hold you down is the moral of this story. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for listening to and watching the Storytime channel. If you haven't yet, please consider subscribing and leave any feedback you can in the comments below, and let us know what you thought about these stories. Did you like them? Did you think they were funny? Let us know how you felt. Thank you all again for watching and listening to the Storytime channel.